Good afternoon, sir. My name is Liam Denny Barrios, and I am going to be your educator for today. Based on your interview, the thing that you want to learn is how to manage stress and sleep deprivation. So I have compiled a presentation for you titled "Rest is Best: Managing the Duo S." Okay, so for the overview, so here's what we'll cover today. We'll first understand why stress matters, and we'll explore how our body's internal clock or circadian rhythm works, and then we'll define stress, differentiate its types, and examine its effects on our body. And then we'll talk about sleep, why it's crucial, and what happens when we don't get enough of it, and how to build a sleep routine. And then finally, we'll look at coping strategies for stress and recognize sleep's restorative power. Okay, first of all, what is stress? Stress is the body's natural response to any demand or change, whether it is good or bad, that requires adjustment or action. You can think of it as your mind and body getting ready to respond, whether it's preparing for an exam, moving to a new city, or an emergency situation. Okay, so stress is inevitable. It's part of being alive. Uh, However, not all stress is bad. In fact, sometimes stress is what motivates us, helps us meet deadlines, and pushes us towards our goals. But when stress becomes overwhelming or chronic, it can cause serious harm. So now we'll talk about the different types of stress. There's the different types of stress are eustress and distress. So what's the difference between these two? Eustress is the good stress that motivates us. So basically, this eustress is like our own motivation. For example, there's a job interview or a wedding, a promotion, or meeting an old friend. The stress you feel is called eustress, or in layman's terms, it is called motivation. For the de-stress, it is the bad stress that drains and overwhelms us, like job loss, illness, or the death of a loved one. Okay, so here is a video to explain deeper on what's the difference between eustress and de-stress.
Stress is simply the body's response to changing stimuli or stressors. Because we have different perception of stress as we have this labeling, stress as good and bad. So that's why it's important also to take a look as when stress is not overwhelming, it can help us step outside of our comfort zone or solve problems or get things done. And those are two kind of stresses. Maybe you heard it before. Eustress, which we call it also positive stress, and distress, like negative stress. And some examples of eustress, right? Exercise, starting a new job, basically starting anything new somehow brings you stress. Marriage, buying a home, is that adjustment period brings up that eustress. And the distress is like filing for divorce, losing a job, filing a bankruptcy, hospitalization, anything related to those distressing feelings that you're aware of can bring distress. And also just talking about some characteristics of eustress, it provides motivation, increases our energy, increases performance, and it's more short term. As I said, it's like adjustment period, and we feel that it is within our coping abilities. So as I mentioned before, it's not overwhelming. That's what I meant by that. And then it feels exciting and increased self-efficacy. And some characteristics of distress is causes anxiety and concern, it causes fatigue, feeling of overwhelmed, and generating unpleasant feelings, and also decreasing performance and focus. It's hard to concentrate, and contributing to mental and physical problems. And it can be short-term or long-term. And I'll be talking about the long-term distress, how it can cause burnout. And now just take a look at mental perception influences usually whether we experience eustress or distress. I just want to point out here that intensity of the stressor is often determined by how we perceive it. So it's very individual experience. For somebody, certain events can be eustress type of events, and somebody distressing. So it's very individual. So we're gonna create today a list, individual list. What is it for you? Eustress and distress. So here, like create a list.
So-
You don't have to do it right now.
So that's the difference between distress and eustress. Next. Let's pause for a moment. Think about a recent situation that caused you stress. Can you think of a moment?
Oh yeah. Some work deadline.
Or deadline. So, would you categorize it as eustress or distress?
Distress.
Good. Now, let's see how the body responds to stress. So, this may look confusing, but I'll try to simplify it. So, the hypothalamus signals the pituitary gland, which then sends signals to the adrenal glands to release cortisol, which is called the stress hormone. So, this triggers physical responses such as increased heart rate, blood pressure, digestive slowdown, and a short boost to our immune system. But over time, chronic stress can suppress the immune system, cause digestive problems, and even impair memory. So, next. Before we move on, let's briefly try a coping activity together. So I'm going to demonstrate on how to relieve stress in a temporary moment. So I'm going to breathe in, and then breathe out. You try. Inhale, exhale. Inhale, exhale. Last time. Inhale, exhale. How do you feel?
Better.
Okay. So, this brings me on to our next topic. What is sleep? So basically, sleep is not just a time off. It's an active vital process that your body needs to repair itself, and the brain consolidates memories, and then hormones are regulated. So here, I'm going to show you another video on what happens when we sleep.
Every night, almost everyone on the planet enters into a state of unconsciousness and paralysis. But what is really happening inside the body when we drift off? And what's the impact if we don't get enough sleep? Sleep is regulated by your circadian rhythm, or body clock, located in the brain. The body clock responds to light cues, ramping up production of the hormone melatonin at night, and switching it off when it senses light. There are 4 stages of sleep that the body experiences in cycles throughout the night. On a good night, we cycle through these stages 4 or 5 times. Stages 1 and 2 are light sleep. This is the transition from being awake to falling asleep. Heart rate and breathing begin to slow, body temperature falls, and muscles may twitch. Stage 3 is sometimes referred to as delta sleep because of the slow delta brainwaves that are released during this stage. This is the first stage of deep sleep, where our cells produce the most growth hormone to service bones and muscles, allowing the body to repair itself. Stage 4 is where we begin to dream. The body creates chemicals that render it temporarily paralyzed, so that we do not act out our dreams. In this stage, the brain is extremely active, and our eyes, although closed, dart back and forth as if we were awake. Humans roughly spend 1/3 of their lives asleep. Modern lifestyles, stress, and the proliferation of technology mean that people are sleeping far less today than they were a century ago. sleeping less than 7 hours per day is associated with an increased risk of developing chronic conditions, which could reduce life expectancy. So for a healthier, longer life, get some shut-eye.
So you know now why stress and sleep deprivation are connected. So I want to say a fun fact. This is not actually a fun fact, it's just a fact. Whenever you lose whenever you lose a certain amount of time, when you lose a certain time of sleep, it means that you need to sleep double amount of time. What does that mean? So, for example, you lost an hour of sleep. Let me rephrase that. For example, your normal sleep cycle is around 8 hours, and you only slept for 6 hours. You might be thinking you're only losing 2 hours of sleep, but in reality, you're actually losing 4 hours of sleep. It's double. So that's why sometimes you always feel tired, because there is this thing called sleep debt that accumulates over time. Yeah, so I don't know how many hours or even days or maybe years of sleep that you've incurred, but I think it's best if we create a personalized sleep routine as quickly as possible.
That's good.
Okay. So, next. So, there are different parts of the brain that controls your sleeping pattern. First, we have in the brain, there's a structure called the suprachiasmatic nucleus, which acts like the clock. It basically tells you when it's time to sleep or when it's time to wake up. Basically, it's like a sensor that detects if it's how do you say this?
Sleep time.
Yeah, sleep time. And then hormones like cortisol and melatonin rise and fall at specific times. Cortisol in the morning to wake us up, and melatonin at night to help us sleep. So, as we see here, the zeitgebers, on the other hand, light and dark cues regulate melatonin from pineal gland. So basically, this is like this another sensor that detects if it's day or night. And then hormone fluctuations, like I said, cortisol peaks at 8 a.m. and melatonin peaks at 2 a.m. So, what are the effects of sleep? So yeah, what happens when we don't sleep well? Cognitively, we suffer slower reaction times, poor decision making, and memory lapses. And physically, our immune system weakens, weight gain increases due to hormone imbalances, and our risk of hypertension goes up. Emotionally, we become more irritable, anxious, and prone to depression. So as you can see, what can you observe about this person who has sleep deprivation? What can you observe about him?
Yeah, looks like stress,
His face is paler, right?
lack of sleep, yeah.
What about his eyes? What's the difference?
Sleepy eyes, and not that active eye, but some kind of tired eyes.
You can see how vastly different it is, right? Okay, so like I said earlier, we need to create your own sleep routine. So I am going to give you an assignment. You're going to create your own sleep routine. What time do you usually sleep again?
8?
8 p.m.
Between 8 to 9, yeah.
So, what are the things we need to do First, we need to limit screen time before bed. The blue light from phones or laptops disrupts our melatonin. And then make your bedroom a sleep-friendly environment, which is dark, cool, and quiet. Okay. So, what time do you usually wake up?
No, early, 3 or 4 o'clock.
3 or 4 o'clock. So, 2 hours before bed, you need to cut off all gadgets, and then basically just don't use any gadgets. You can read a book or maybe even do physical activities, but no gadgets, so that you will be able to sleep early. Okay, so this is a research article. Sleep deprivation and stressors, evidence for elevated negative affect in response to mild stressors when sleep deprived. So basically, in summary, this research supports the connection between sleep deprivation and stress. Okay, so let's reflect on this quote. Can you read it for me?
There's a virtue in work and there's a virtue in rest. Use both and overlook neither. By Alan Cohen.
So as Alan Collins said, there's virtue in rest, and yeah, rest and stress management aren't luxuries. They're necessities for a healthy and successful life. Okay, so that ends our presentation. Thank you for listening, and I'm going to be sending you a short questionnaire that you need to answer. It's just a short quiz on what you understood from this topic.
Okay.
Thank you very much, sir.
For that. No problem.